Welcome back to SouFLoTV again, everybody. It is your host with the most. 100 days of Donald Trump in office. The U.S. in a whirlwind. Republican Donald Trump has been U.S. president for 100 days now. Which of his promises has he kept? And what do Americans think about their country in transition? Let's get into this. This article is a story by Carla Bleicher. This article was actually written in German and then translated into English, but this article is absolutely true. What I want for you to do is listen and then leave your comments at the end of this. So, the inauguration on January 20th, 2025, marked the start of Donald Trump's second presidency. Since he took office, so much has changed in U.S. politics that it's hard to believe it's only been 100 days, during which numerous 180-degree turns have occurred. Whether it's fundamental shifts in U.S. foreign policy or putting tariffs on the world's imports, there has hardly been a single day when the White House hasn't been the source of urgent breaking news. A lot of people are saying this is exhausting. Please remember, it's only been 100 days. It's 365 days in a year, and every president gets 4 years as a term. So no matter what side of the aisles you're sitting on, I think most people would agree that it's been relatively busy, said Mark Malone, who is a professor in the Department of Public Administration and Policy at American University in Washington, D.C. He definitely came in guns a-blazing. There's a strategy behind all the action, experts have said. Time magazine calls it a blitz of power grabs, strategic shifts, and direct attacks. That leaves opponents at home and abroad stunned. American citizens who disagree with Donald Trump's new direction, they are unsure of where to begin when it comes to mounting any kind of protest. Should they demonstrate against Donald Trump's complete disregard for climate change and his plans to increase drilling for oil, or protest their undermining of the separation of powers as the administration deports immigrants in violation of court orders by federal judges? Or it's the restrictions being placed on a free press in the U.S. as certain outlets Trump considers undesirable are actually banned from White House press conferences. That requires protest first. Or maybe it's the clampdown on freedom of expressions at universities and researchers are calling off from federal funding. This second Trump administration is dividing the country like never seen before. Yet, even as that is happening, many are asking how many of the promises that Donald Trump made to his followers before the election last November has the president actually kept. Okay, so let's start off with ending the war in Ukraine. So in May of 2023, at an event in New Hampshire, Donald Trump said that if he is elected, he would end the war in Ukraine immediately. They're dying, Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying. And I'll have that done. I'll have that done in 24 hours. That's what he said. But guess what? The war is still going, and Donald Trump has had to acknowledge that he wasn't able to end that conflict. The Trump administration is working unilaterally on some sort of solution, but without the proper support of the U.S. traditional allies and with compromises that seem to favor the Russians over the Ukrainians. Even during his first phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, Trump seemed to make far-reaching concessions to Russian arguments, even though it was Russia who invaded Ukraine. Ukrainian president received a drubbing from Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance when he visited the White House for being ungrateful. As a result of that fracas, military aid to Ukraine was actually put on hold, although it has since been started up back again. Now, recently, President Trump criticized Ukraine for insisting that Crimea be considered part of Ukrainian territory, instead of simply surrendering the peninsula to their enemies to facilitate a quick peace. In Ukraine, locals impacted by the ongoing war, they have been shocked at the abrupt about-face of their most important supporter, the United States of America. Now, it's not just Ukraine either. America's Western partners are also concerned about where Donald Trump's allegiance lies. He has questioned American participation in the NATO military alliance. He has even said that he might not defend NATO countries who he thinks don't spend enough on their own defense should Russia attack them. He did take that back eventually, but it has become abundantly clear to European nations that they can no longer rely on the US the way that they used to. Now, let's talk about the whole kicking out the bloodthirsty criminals out of the country, etc. So immigration policy was one of Trump's favorite campaign issues, right? And at an event in New York in October of 2024, he promised that if elected, he would launch the largest deportation program in U.S. history. Donald Trump said that he would put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail and then kick them the hell out of our country as fast as possible. In fact, so far, at least, Trump's deportation program has not been particularly quick. In February, Trump's first full month in office, the U.S. government deported around 11,000 migrants. In February of 2021, the first month of Joe Biden's administration, that number of illegal migrants deported was around 12,000, more than Trump did. However, NBC News has reported that fewer people are crossing the southern border with Mexico into the U.S. under Donald Trump. Now, Trump has definitely made immigration more difficult, says Malone. Some would consider that a success. Some would consider that not consistent with American values, whichever way you want to take it. Let's talk about the economy, and let's talk about America is back, or is it? Donald Trump's campaign on the promise that the U.S. economy would boom under his leadership. One of his slogans was, "Make America affordable again." Prices would fall on the first day of his presidency, he promised. Much like he said he would end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours of coming into office. This has happened for some products, such as gasoline. Prices for flights and hotel stays also have decreased, as did overall inflation. Meanwhile, the average prices for goods excluding the highly volatile cost of gasoline and food, were 2.8% higher in March than a year ago. The lowest price in almost 4 years, according to AP News Agency. Now, President Trump's policies are working at keeping inflation at bay. Keeping inflation down, said Stephen Moran, chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors. The White House's economic advisory team said in an interview with CNBC, between that and what's going on with trade, America is back. However, for many Americans, shopping at the supermarket remains as expensive as it was at the beginning of the Trump's term. Weekly shopping for a two-person household can cost easily more than $150, even in less expensive areas outside of major cities. Let's talk about the tariffs. Promise kept and cause for concern. So, after his election, Donald Trump announced that he would end the policy of ridiculously open borders and then use trade deficit. In April, Trump's administration introduced a series of protective tariffs on almost all goods that were imported to the U.S. So, promise kept. However, this makes some products more expensive for U.S. consumers, and it jeopardizes established trade relations. So, according to a survey by the Pew Research Center, Americans now view their country's economic situation and future more critically than they did in February, shortly after Donald Trump took office and before he announced his tariffs. At that time, 40% of respondents said that they expected the U.S. economy to be in better shape by next February, while 37% believed conditions would deteriorate. This is before the tariffs. In April, after the tariffs, only 36% thought economic conditions in the U.S. would be better in a year from now, in contrast to the 45% who believe that the U.S. economic situations would deteriorate. Do we have stability in government? Listen, a certain amount of uncertainty may stem from the fact that Donald Trump's administration suspends or scraps tariffs just as quickly as it introduces them. Such flip-flopping, said Malone, is bad for the central pillar of any well-functioning government stability. This first 100 days, it's been a whirlwind, but it's not likely it's only progress, the political scientists said. So, the Trump administration introduces many things and then withdrew them again. This was evident in the tariffs, but also in the layoffs in many branches of government. Initially, thousands of people were laid off, though some of these employees, for example, in the areas of aviation and nuclear safety, were rehired. There's a very hard way this is to run a government, said the political scientist. All government want consistency, and they want predictability, and they want to move slowly. You need stability in government, and this is not stability right now. What do you think about the Donald Trump government so far? Its first 100 days in office. Again, we give credit to Arthur Carla Bleicher. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Tell me if you agree or disagree? Are things going well? Do you feel like this is prosperity and we are moving upward? Do you feel like things are stagnant and we're stuck? Or do you feel like things are bad and getting worse? One of those. And why you feel that way, please leave that in the comment section below. I'll catch you on the next video. It's SouFLoTV. I'm out. Peace.